Hello, people out there in the world, wherever you may be. This is David Rovix with a little guided tour of my new album, which drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st, 2024, in just a few days. It's an album that is basically divided up into three sections, and the first section is all about songs related to the ongoing genocide in Gaza and other things related to Israeli policies and relationships with Israel and things like that. And if anybody has any comments or questions, whatever platform you're watching on, I can see them in the comments section here on StreamYard, where they all get fed to me in a stream. And I will just start out with the first song and then talk about that and other songs and whatever else people might want to talk about. But the first song is called The Ballad of the USS Liberty, parentheses, when Israel attacked the USA.
It was the 8th of June, 67, in the middle of the Six-Day War. The international waters off the sands of the Mediterranean shore, they were executing prisoners by a mosque in the Sinai. And that day scores of Egyptian soldiers' bodies there would lie. The IDF was trying to cover up their war crimes, and the USS Liberty saw it all in real time. So the Israeli Air Force got the orders, bombs away, when Israel attacked the USA. The pilot saw the American flag as it came down from the sky. He asked for confirmation and was told to let him fly. They dropped 1,000-pound bombs, and then what they do is drop napalm to burn down the ship along with the crew. After all that, the ship's still afloat, came the IDF's torpedo boats. All the survivors remember the day when Israel attacked the USA. When the sailors lowered escape rafts down to the water, they were met with an aerial slaughter as the IDF attacked all those trying to flee from the fires raging throughout the Liberty. A Soviet ship offered to assist as eventually the Israeli bombers would desist. Somehow the ship managed to limp into the bay when Israel attacked the USA. Sides of the ocean, President Johnson didn't want any unnecessary commotion. Just forget it ever happened. Squash the investigation. No Israelis were punished for committing any violation. They said it was an accident, a thin disguise. Everyone who witnessed believes this is a lie. It was entirely intentional. That's what they say when Israel attacked the USA. 34 Americans dead, bombed or shot, hundreds more maimed on the spot. But the big thing about which the brass was concerned were the NSA documents they wanted burned so they could classify everything. Top secret. Tell all the survivors, don't talk about it. But finally the truth has seen the light of day when Israel attacked the USA. It's the 8th of June, 67, middle of the Six-Day War.
The It's kind of hard to imagine now that the Israeli military would be concerned about anybody observing them committing an atrocity, but that is apparently what prompted the Israeli military to try to kill everybody on the ship and sink the ship that was spying off the coast for the NSA. But after many different waves of attacks against the USS Liberty, involving dropping pound bombs as well as strafing with machine guns and napalm, starting fires and everything else. After hours of that, the ship was still floating, and by this time there had been high level efforts to get the Israelis to stop attacking the ship, and eventually they did, with never any significant response, militarily or otherwise, from the United States, which just tried right away to cover up the whole thing. So that's a little history for you. And I'm just seeing somebody commenting that Abu Saka is arrested again, in prison again, and in the West Bank, in Ramallah, with the Ramallah Circus School, the Palestine Circus School. It's no surprise there. It's crazy. So many, 500 people, Palestinians killed, over 500 since October in the West Bank. And who knows how many tens of thousands or more in Gaza. Here is track number 2 from the upcoming album, If I Heard a Rumor, which will be dropping on all the streaming platforms on August 1st.
It's happening now like it has before at the universities in a time of war. Put people together, they'll communicate. Talk about things like college and state. Talk about the research that built the Iron Dome. Talk about their relatives starving back at home. Talk about tuition and where the money's spent and where all the buildings in Gaza went. Wake up each morning and the headlines say how many hundreds of Palestinians died today, how many thousands were killed in the past week. People get together, people speak. The newscasters say with surety the campuses lack security. Meanwhile, across the ocean wide, Palestinian genocide. People are saying they won't leave till they win, and then the police are sent in. Beaten and arrested staff and students, and to try to silence this growing movement. They're punishing people for making it known that the direct connection can be easily shown. How the investments of this institution are funding another final solution. Where it goes is anyone's guess. After all, this is the U.S. Battles have been lost and won, but with bombs being dropped every day by the ton, with the orphaned and famished beneath the sky, waiting for the moment when it's their turn to die. Some people just can't look away. They have to set up a tent on the campus and say, boycott, sanction, and divest. 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 Boycott, sanction, and divest.
I've been recording these songs in my living room, and with this microphone I'm speaking into now, and plugging the instrument, either mandola, bouzouki, or guitar, into this little Focusrite thing, and the mixer thingy, whatever it's called, and recording here. And then I send a WAV file over to Chet Gardner in Hawaii. And then in his home studio there, he has been adding all the other instrumentation and making all the everything else sound much better. And that's been the collaborative process. And then that video there on that last song, for people watching this live in the live stream version, later it'll be a podcast. But if you watch the video version, that was a video done by an anonymous Iranian filmmaker who made that one. He has also made a number of other videos for other songs, especially, well, all of them since October. And that last song was written after the student occupations began on campuses all over the country. And this next song, staying with the section about Palestine, as I mentioned at the beginning, the album is composed of 3 sections. The first section is all songs related to Palestine, and also all. I mean, most of the album's songs I've written very recently in the past few months. Some of the songs are older, but I guess all the Palestine ones are very new songs. Yeah. And the one of the Hasbro troll narratives that I constantly run into is this idea that there was a ceasefire before October 7th and everything was just hunky-dory. And of course, that is absolute rubbish. And I wrote a song called Since Long Before October that addresses that.
Since long before October, we've watched as every time the Israelis deny their hourly war crimes, the Western leaders then accept whatever they say is the reason why their missiles once again went astray, always giving them the benefit of the doubt, accepting the assumptions what their nation is about, and now watch them justify the missiles that they sent to bomb the starving children dying in their tents. Since long before October, we've seen the government decide clearly, unequivocally in favor of genocide. As the case goes through the court, the judgments are ignored because, as the politicians say, this is a total war, but somehow their pronouncements don't translate in the West, where the conflict is portrayed as complicated at best. And now watch them justify the missiles that they sent to bomb the starving children dying in their tents. The score and maintain the upper hand in the propaganda war. They talk of ancient history, propagating lies while encircled by the soldiers. The starving die. 2 million people without shelter, without food or water, being killed by a regime that bills us for the slaughter. And now watch them justify the missiles that they sent to bomb the starving children dying in their tents. Since long before October.
And the is it lagging a little? Oh, I don't know. Whatever's going on, I don't know what I can do about it, but sorry about that. Whatever lagging is happening. I'm actually running on a my cell phone hotspot as far as the Wi-Fi goes at the moment. I won't get into the details of why that is the situation, but basically, this country sucks is the summary, and capitalism sucks, and all the options for accessing the internet in this country are ridiculously expensive and they suck. And like go just about anywhere else outside of this country, and it just makes a mockery of the whole privatized capitalist system that we live under, because just about everybody else has much cheaper and much faster internet, and also just about everybody else has much cheaper and much nicer housing, among other things that this country sucks at, and that capitalism sucks at, is providing housing and fast Wi-Fi. Although it's very good at inventing all sorts of new ways of sucking the wealth up off of the working class. That's very good. Capitalism is very good at that. Let's see. So I'm digressing, though. The next song on the album is the Ballad of the House Un-Israeli Activities Committee, led by Elise Stefanik, but by no means is she the only one on it. She's just one of the more vocal, insulting ones on it. One of the more ignorant members, but there's lots of them making a show of their pro-Zionist, pro-genocide agenda, and the obvious parallels with the House Un-American Activities Committee are not lost on anybody with any knowledge of the history of the 20th century. And I wrote this song with that obvious parallel in mind.
If you imagine when considering a slogan that it could have various interpretations, if you believe in understanding the other side, then you're clearly much too vulnerable. Open wide if you don't want to be grilled by the Inquisition, if you'd rather avoid such a prone position, if you run a university and act the way you ought, if you think there's a place for nuanced thought, if it's hard to boil it all down to yes or no, if you think context matters and you dare say so, you'd best be out of town when you're the one they pick to go get grilled by Elise Stefanik. You'd better toe the line or else you know what they'll do. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. If you're fond of notions like free discourse, if you think dialogue might be better than brute force, your thinking isn't nearly black and white enough, and in the halls of Congress they'll be talking tough, showing those bureaucrats who knows best, making sure who knows they could be the next guest. You'd better toe the line or else you know what they'll do. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. If you want to keep your job and your donor base, you don't want to have to come face to face, you'd better call in the police and salute your leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister. Make sure they crack the heads off all those Jew haters. So says the Queen of the New Red Baiters. You'd better toe the line or else you know what they'll do. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you.
And that's track number 4 on the new album, I Heard a Rumor, which drops on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and all the other streaming platforms on August 1st. If you guys do playlists, please do playlists and whatever else gets the word out about these things. I've got a tour coming up too for the month of August. Kamala, Emmanuel, and I forming the duo Ministry of Culture will be on tour on the West Coast in Southern Oregon, Northern California, Chicago during the DNC. If anybody is involved with any activities happening in Chicago, we sing at protests for free and we'll be there for the week, and also in Wisconsin. And all the info about our upcoming gigs in August in Oregon, California, Illinois, and Wisconsin are at davidrovics.com/tour. And once again, the album I Heard a Rumor drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st. And the fifth track on the album is a track about, well, basically a couple of journalists I watch a lot, and you do too if you watch Al Jazeera English, Hani Mahmoud and Tarek Abu Azum. Of course, since I wrote the song, Hind Huduri is now also on the team and reporting as much as those two. And I would have added her name into this song if that had been the case when I wrote it. But there's so many other names I could mention. But certainly for the first few months of the ongoing genocide in Gaza, if you were watching Al Jazeera English, whether you're watching a little bit or way too much like I was, like so many of my friends were, like Kamala, Emmanuel, and so many others were, then you saw a heck of a lot of Tarek and Hani. And you saw and heard about all the journalists being killed and targeted, which in the first few months of the war was at least 10% of the journalists alive in Gaza were no longer alive. And this situation continues, and so I think anybody watching Al Jazeera is in a very, very morbid way, just wondering if when they tune in next, those journalists that are watching are going to be alive. And I did not write this song as some kind of a pre-death obituary song or something like that, as if somebody once interpreted it, and it's not meant to be a prediction for anybody's death at all. It's just a love song for a couple of journalists that I very much don't want to die.
I watch Al Jazeera, I never miss a day. I hear each word the reporters on the ground in Gaza say. At the top of every hour, my mind is cued for Tarek Abu Azum and Hani Mahmoud to tell us about each building coming down from journalists who are right there on the ground. Wael al-Dahdu's family was killed in an airstrike while he was looking at the camera and holding his mic. An Israeli official openly said, "We want all of those terrorist journalists dead." And now that they've closed off every route, so nobody inside has any way out. So while they still live, I'd like to say, from here in my living room, thank you for your service, Hani Mahmoud and Tarek Abu Azum. They've banned the network in Israel, jammed their frequencies, blocking out the media that dares to disagree with those who say we don't have any journalists inside, but we don't think what's going on looks like genocide. Al Jazeera does, so the occupiers willed. The journalists reporting there in Gaza must be killed. So while they still live, I'd like to say, from here in my living room, thank you for your service, Hani Mahmoud and Tarek Abu Azum. As the tanks close in to the city center, as the world wonders when exactly they will enter. Where the network isn't banned, we can hear the blasts as we await the moment when this might be the last one that these reporters will probably stream live until the second the drone strike arrives. So while they still live, I'd like to say, from here in my living room, thank you for your service, Hani Mahmoud and Tarek Abu Azum. While they still live, I'd like to say, from here in my living room, thank you for your service, Hani Mahmoud and Tarek Abu Azum.
And that's where the section of the album that is about, directly at least, about Palestine ends, and the second section of the album begins, which is pretty much all about the class war, which is another of my favorite and very related subjects to write about. No, wait a sec. No, I lied. There's one more song about Palestine. Never mind. Class war is coming up. One more Palestine-related song, which is actually one about a subject especially near and dear to my heart, because it's about the bloodthirsty lawyers in England that are trying to ruin my career and the careers of many other artists and intellectuals and authors and journalists and all kinds of other people that they target for harassment and cancellation. The group in question is called UK Lawyers for Israel, and there's UK Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust. And with the help of some wonderful lawyers in Israel, in England, who are not pro-Israel, but in fact very much pro-Palestine and pro-free speech and pro-justice and anti-genocide, these folks were involved with lodging complaints of all sorts against UK Lawyers for Israel, and I wish it were in the United States and we could sue them for a lot of money, because that'd be nice. But here is my ballad for UK Lawyers for Israel.
I woke up one morning with an email in my inbox containing lies and slander known locally as bollocks. I was about to tour in England, singing songs about the Holocaust in Gaza when one of the venues pulled out. They had gotten a letter from UKLFI threatening consequences if they did not comply as Israel commits its war crimes. More and more people see, but this brave bunch of barristers are gonna keep the world free. The list of their accomplishments are right there in black and white. They take credit openly, right there on their website. If you get kicked off of PayPal, GoFundMe, or Facebook, they probably brag about it. Go and take a look. Anyone who calls out Israel as a fascist state, if they get any attention, they can expect to meet their fate, lose their jobs, have lies and slander spread about their name, canceling careers. That's the name of the solicitor's game. UK Lawyers for Israel intends to turn the tide to advocate for the state committing genocide. If you cry out against the slaughter, that could be their cue. Their next target might be you. You can see it on their website. Their email list is tiny, but they can compensate in cash for what they lack in popularity, and their legal threats aren't limited just to the UK. Wherever someone supports Palestine, they've got something to say. If it's a gathering in Glasgow or a conference in Berlin, these livid lawyers will make sure that censorship will win. They've even got a charity and a troll farm too, and they don't care if you're a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew. UK lawyers for Israel intends to turn the tide to advocate for the state committing genocide. If you cry out against the slaughter, that could be their cue. Their next target might be you. They took the Labour Party, centered it in their sights, and accused all the best of them of being anti-Semites. They took the best professors and they got them fired. They took former Supreme Court judges, said that they were liars. If you're afraid to speak out, the roots of that fear may result from a campaign intended to create that atmosphere. If you're feeling threatened, the reason why could just be the lords and ladies of UKLFI. UK lawyers for Israel intends to turn the tide to advocate for the state committing genocide. If you cry out against the slaughter, that could be their cue. Their next target might be you. I woke up one morning with an email in my inbox.
And thus concludes the first section of the album. And on to section number 2 of this album, I Heard a Rumor, which drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st. The next section of the album is basically about the class war with, I could put all the next section in that broad category with possibly one exception, I don't know. But this next song is for sure in that category, and it goes out to all my fellow renters and who are and all my fellow people who are getting more and more in credit card debt.
Put the groceries on a credit card, so when the first comes round, we'll have money in the bank to pay the rent. It never used to be so hard, but lately I've found before the checks come in, the money's spent. I didn't know that my apartment would be a product on the market, although housing is a basic human need. Now it's just someone's investment, a place where they could park it in this land of corporate greed. I don't know what the future holds, but if there is no doubt we'll keep on eating till the cards maxed out. When I was young, they said the economy was booming. Back then I didn't understand. This was just a line they fed the people they were grooming for the fate they had in store to take the land. I don't know what the future holds, but if there is no doubt we'll keep on eating till the cards maxed out. Just look down the street, there's no question what you see. Listen to the trembling inflection. Most of the neighbors that you meet as they're turning their door key, people struggling in every direction. I don't know what the future holds, but if there is no doubt we'll keep on eating till the cards maxed out.
And I am I'm keeping my eye out for comments, by the way, on all the platforms, whichever one you might be watching on. StreamYard collects them all together for me to see in one stream of commentary. And so I can see, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or X. I can see your comments, and I won't repeat them for everybody if you're just saying hello from somewhere. But I'll if anybody has any questions or anything like that, of course, I will happily uh, come up with some kind of response to them. But keeping on with this album guided tour, the album, the next song on the album is a song I guess so far, they're all songs I wrote very recently. And this one I wrote, I guess, last month, something like that. And it is about the Poor People's March on Washington in 1968, which is, many people would say, the reason why Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, that he was wanting to organize this, what potentially could have been a really revolutionary movement, which became something far less impressive or less ambitious than what King had been imagining. It's impressive that anything happened actually after he was assassinated, that the people kept up with this plan, even though he had been the main kind of leader of this whole initiative. But it's quite a story, I think. And I wrote a song about it. And let's see where it is. Is that it? No, that's not it. It's right here. Is that it? Yeah.
Was the end of 67 when the meeting began, where MLK and friends began to make a plan to try to build on all the victories they'd won. He said, now it's the era of human rights begun. All across the country, people organized, and all across the country, so did the FBI, to derail and disrupt, by press and by gun, the Poor People's March on Washington. Walks were planned all across the country to head to the Capitol, stay until victory, armed with an economic Bill of Rights. Indians, Chicanos, blacks and whites, together in a struggle for a guaranteed income, for housing, for jobs. They came from California, Alabama, everywhere beneath the sun, for the Poor People's March on Washington. On Mother's Day, 1968, they'd set up camp to challenge the United States to live up to its convictions. Prosperity for all, the plan was not to leave until they saw injustice fall. To destroy this movement, the state did its very best, as the historical record abundantly attests. But what lengths they would go to make sure that they won against the Poor People's March on Washington. Whether it's related or whether it was not, on April 4th, 68, MLK was shot. What the future might have held if he'd lived to go, unfortunately, this world will never know. Resurrection City was built on Mother's Day. A month later, mass arrested and taken away. That's what happened, it's all true. However else it spun, it was the Poor People's March on Washington. It was the end of 67 when the meeting began, where MLK and friends began to make a plan.
And the next song on the album, sticking with the very broad class war theme, which MLK was all about, lest anybody be confused about what he, in so much of the civil rights movement, as the media called it, was all about, was the poor people. When he organized the Poor People's March on Washington in '63, it was the March on Washington for jobs and equality. That was the and later the Poor People's March on Washington, where it was explicitly an intersectional, ecumenical, inclusive thing. And but the next song is, I think, about a subject that's more relevant now than it's been for generations, which is the idea of whose world is this, whose land is this, who owns, who are the owners, who are the renters, how did this completely unequal feudal situation get set up, and how has it gotten maintained for so many centuries? How is it that half of us are renters and half of us are in some form or another owners, and most of us are in debt regardless? How did we get here? How is this continuing? How is it that a handful of corporations can determine what we all are paying in rent, and we call that the market rate? How is that the case? How is it the case that we hear talking head after talking head on the media telling us falsely that the solution to the problem is to construct more housing, as if they have no power in a democracy to control the prices that are charged for monopolized scarce resources. I mean, this is exactly what democracy is supposed to be about, and they don't even mention the possibility that we can actually control the rent, as has been done in so many societies, including this one for so long. So this next song is called Rent Strike, and it's about something that needs to happen. And if you're in the Portland area and you like this song, then go to abolishevictions.org and sign up for Portland Emergency Eviction Responses Text Mob. Let's get going.
Each year there are more people living on the streets, their ranks growing geometrically. And in fact, the numbers are increasing by the exact same degree. As the rents are rising, the situation is clear. If we don't change this reality, there ain't no civilization here. But what if all the renters stopped paying the rent and showed our collective might? What if we kept on refusing until housing was a human right? Each year things get grimmer, feels more like the sting of defeat. More and more people working 2 or 3 jobs who still can't make ends meet. What if we all said to our neighbors, here's what we will do. If the authorities come to evict anyone, we'll all come and stand with you. What if all the renters stopped paying the rent and showed our collective might? What if we kept on refusing until housing was a human right? Each year is more dystopic, beyond what anyone can stand. But there was a time in this country when evictions were banned, when the Union of the Unemployed organized, and then they passed rent control 90 years ago. We can make them do it again. What if all the renters stopped paying the rent and showed our collective might? What if we kept on refusing until housing was a human right? What if all the renters stopped paying the rent and showed our collective might? What if we kept on refusing until housing was a human right? Till housing was a human right.
Somebody Comments from New York City. We know all about it, as you most certainly do. New York is really ground zero for all this, for investment properties and landlords like Jared Kushner and BlackRock and all these horrible companies based out of there. And New York has some of the highest, I believe, the highest rent in the country. And of course, it has this amazing history of rent control and struggles to keep the rent down. The rent strike wars in upstate New York in the 1840s, and the movement for rent control in the early 20th century, and again the squatting movement in the latter half of the 20th century in the Lower East Side and Bronx and Brooklyn and everywhere, that was understood broadly to be a important part of the struggle against gentrification and rising rents. But, of course, the capitalists have a lot of power and influence, and they kept on getting new laws passed. Only rent control only applies if you live in a building that was built before 1947 in New York City. And so any landlord of an old building is trying to let it go to hell so that they can have an excuse to destroy it and build something else. That's the way it is. Capitalism sucks. And we need to control the rent. The next song on the album is taken from an echoey live performance, but I sent it to Chet to work with anyway, and he was very obliging and did so, although it was probably too much reverb, and we only did one song like that on the album, but it's still really cool what he did with it. And speaking of live, Kamala Emanuel is also on the album more than what you're hearing now, but I don't have videos that have her harmonies mixed in. So the actual album will have some of her harmonies on a couple of the songs, including that last one, I believe. But anyway, if you want to hear the live thing with me and Kamala, then you have to be someone who lives in Southern Oregon, Northern California, Chicago, or Wisconsin, or who's going to one of those places. We'll be on tour between August 8th and August 24th, between Southern Oregon, Northern California, Chicago, and Wisconsin. At davidrovics.com/tour, you can see all the info about all those gigs. And if you know anybody in any of those places, Ashland, Eugene, Mendocino, San Francisco, Berkeley, Sacramento, Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz, Chicago, Viroqua, it would be just so great if you could tell people you know about the tour, because that is actually the only way we get an audience. I don't have any promoters. There's no corporations behind this operation. There's none of that. And the social media algorithms do not help. And so really writing and calling and, personal messages to people you may know to tell them about the gig coming up in their area, that kind of thing is invaluable. It really is so nice to have an audience when I have a gig and not be just playing for the wall. It really is so much more therapeutic to have people clapping instead of just the wall. The walls don't react, and it feels kind of pointless. The next song on the album is a little more history, and it's about the Toll Puddle martyrs, as they're known. Although, normally martyrs would imply somebody died, but there's a lot of things like that. Normally wars would imply people dying too. The rent strike wars in upstate New York, as they're known, the 9-year-long rent strike. There was only one person who died in the course of that whole thing. So, but it was known as the rent strike wars long before that one person died. People name things in different ways, but the Toll Puddle martyrs did not die, in fact, but they were martyrs nonetheless. They were sentenced to the really outrageous and cruel punishment of transportation to Australia, which meant, basically living on bread and water in the hold of a ship for 111 days, and then getting to Australia and working in the searing heat, breaking rocks, and this is the kind of stuff that would kill people before their sentences were over. And they were sent to Australia to do that work because of the crime of trying to organize a union at a time when it was actually ostensibly on the books legal to organize a union, but not in reality. Toll Puddle Festival in Dorset last weekend, which was a wonderful time. Bit warm, bit lacking in shade, but not like splitting rocks in Australia. On the south coast of England in 1834, there was a trial that pitted the rich against the poor. On one side were the landlords with the private army, on the other side were farmhands, their hungry families. To combine was not illegal, but secret oaths were punishable by torturing so cruel it's unimaginable. Transportation, 7 years a slave, a sentence that ended so many early graves. For the south coast of England in 1834, to imagine the privations of the triplet lane store. 111 days locked up in the hold, fed on bread and water as the southern ocean rolled. And splitting rocks in Sydney beneath the blazing sun, finding out the hard way just how the West was won. All because they dared to try to stand up for their lives, to form a union, feed their children and survive. On the south coast of England in 1834, word spread up to Sheffield and every other shore. Thousands marched in London, people organized all over, from Manchester to Merthyr, from Dundee down to Dover. Help came in from everywhere, the families were supported, the movement won a pardon to bring back the deported. And in 1836, most of them returned, one more battle in the class war about which we never learned. On the south coast of England. And if the song Rent Strike was not enough on that particular subject, I have a second song that is exactly about the same subject, which is a bit more explicitly an effort to use to write a song that is intended to recruit people to Portland emergency eviction response. But I would just note to any musically inclined organizers out there that this song can be easily adjusted without needing to even rhyme anything to suit your needs for a jingle for your own local eviction response team. It's called a zipper song as far as that verse goes. And this is the next track in the album, I Heard a Rumor, which drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st. This is Join the Mob. If you're wondering how you'll manage to survive if the rent keeps going up till the eviction note arrives, hey, I took your work away and you don't know what to do. Well, my friend, I've got some advice for you. Join the mob. Join the mob. If you're tired of having everything get robbed by the corporations coming for your home and for your job, join the mob. Join the mob. If you're worried that they'll find out what you think about their system of landlord-driven super profit uber capitalism, let me tell you, buddy, they already have your name. If they have it and we don't, that would be an awful shame. So join the mob. Join the mob. If you're tired of having everything get robbed by the corporations coming for your home and for your job, join the mob. Join
We can organize ourselves and show up when it's time to tell the cops to go home and not commit the crime of putting people on the street because they can't afford the constant rising of the rents for the profits of the board. Join the mob. Join the mob. If you're tired of having everything get robbed by the corporations coming for your home and for your job. Join the mob. Join the mob. You won't hear it on the radio when it's time to come defend some poor tenant who doesn't want their tenancy to end. At abolishevictions.org, bottom of the page, sign up so you know when it's time to come engage and join the mob. Join the mob. If you're tired of having everything get robbed by the corporations coming for your home and for your job. Join the mob. Join the mob. We can change the world, though they'll say it isn't so. They'll pretend this cutthroat method is the only way to go. In so many other countries, it's not like this at all. But we have got to rise if BlackRock's gonna fall. And join the mob. Join the mob. If you're tired of having everything get robbed by the corporations coming for your home and for your job. Join the mob. 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 Join the mob.
And that mob singing with me was Chet Gardner, reproducing his voice in many times. And on this next song, it's Kamala Emanuel singing with me, and this is one of the ones I do have us both singing on the video. There's a live album out now on Bandcamp, Ministry of Culture Live at Eco-Socialism 2024, which will be dropping on the streaming platforms on September 1st, and it features a live show from just a few weeks ago in Perth, in Western Australia, with me and Kamala singing, very nicely recorded and enhanced by Chet Gardner in Hawaii, and who is, as I mentioned before, the guy playing all these other instruments that are not the ones you're seeing me playing. And I'm obviously using a virtual background right now, which I think is fun, even though it looks totally warped and weird and reminds me of the 80s and Max Headroom on MTV, which was fun to watch just for looking at that weird guy's face, but I don't know. So the next song on the album, I Heard a Rumor, which drops on streaming platforms on August 1st, which I'm probably saying too often, is a song. Let's see, what is the next song on the album? I think is that the one? No, this is not the one that she's singing with me on. That was false advertising. That's coming up. That's the song after this one. This next one is actually one I wrote a year or two ago, which I didn't have a video for, and so Chet put together a nice slideshow to go along with the song. And it is about when the CIA participated in a coup to overthrow the democratically elected government of Australia in 1975.
Gough Whitlam was elected in 1972. By the time his prime ministership was through, the people of Australia got health care, higher education everywhere. Australian troops were taken out of Vietnam. Whitlam spoke out against the savage bombs. He suggested that Australia be a different kind of place. He talked about shutting down the spy base. No one could forget who was alive those days in 1975. He got Nixon's attention then, and his coup-plotting CIA men. The same people they set loose on Indonesia were assigned to work in Whitlam's Australia, sending in agents and not saying who. Through different methods the Prime Minister knew, and the chief one colluding with the CIA plot held the Governor General's spot. No one could forget who was alive those days in 1975. Sir John Kerr was assigned to the scheme, suggested by the party, appointed by the Queen, with whom he corresponded secretly in a plot to undermine his own democracy. For months he schemed behind Whitlam's back, waiting for the moment he could act. When he had a chance, his solution was a double dissolution. No one could forget who was alive those days in 1975. There were the biggest protests in Australian history, while the Governor-General was commended by His Majesty for overthrowing Whitlam, for kicking him out. What constitutional monarchy is all about, when they woke up down under one day in November, not knowing if the future might even remember that Australia was almost an independent state before Whitlam met his fate. No one could forget who was alive those days in 1975. Gough Whitlam was elected in 1972.
And yeah, and then the next song was actually we recorded with Kamala's microphone in just for two voices and and a guitar, and sent that to Chet for him to try to work with, which he worked with really well. It's a song called "The Murdered and the Missing," song for Chelsea Poorman. And I wrote the song in Australia earlier or last month because I got some messages from a friend in Canada, Crow, who was talking about this particular case, one of so many thousands of cases. And I just did some reading and watching on YouTube about it, and I wrote this song.
They found Chelsea Poorman's body behind a mansion in Vancouver. She had been rotting there alone for 1.5 years. She had just signed up for film school but would never have a chance. Just like so many others, killed or disappeared. In one of the world's richest countries, in the country's richest neighborhood, in the backyard of an investment property. A construction worker found her, having nothing to do with any work done by the RCMP. Just another of the murdered and the missing, another illustration of the shame. One more dead Canadian woman who remembers her name. Chelsea lived in the city of Vancouver. By her friends and family, she was loved well. Her father drove 1,000 miles to come to search for her, to try to find the place where his daughter fell. As soon as her body was discovered, the insults began to be hurled. There was no foul play involved in her death, the RCMP announced to the world. Just another of the murdered and the missing, another illustration of the shame. One more dead Canadian woman. Who remembers her name? Chelsea Portman was missing 3 fingers. She had somehow lost a chunk of her head. The authorities waited until 2 weeks later before announcing they found Chelsea dead. They said, sorry, the case is closed now, with no investigation to show. They said, what happened to this young woman, we'll probably never know. Just another of the murdered and the missing, another illustration of the shame. One more dead Canadian woman. Who remembers her name? Chelsea Portman's body was found behind a mansion her father had to break into it to find. She had left a variety of her belongings, and they were still sitting in the house left behind. We may not know what happened to her yet, but someone important has something to hide. There's one thing here that is certain: the cops are corrupt and they lied. Just another of the murdered and the missing, another illustration of the shame. One more dead Canadian woman. Who remembers her name? Just another of the murdered and the missing, another illustration of the shame. One more dead Indigenous woman. Who remembers her name? Who remembers her name? Who remembers her name?
And once again, for those of you who are on the West Coast or in the Midwest who might be able to catch Kamala and I singing together like we just were in that video, although without all the wonderful instrumentation by Chet Gardner. But you can catch the two of us traveling with a guitar and playing those songs around Southern Oregon, Northern California, Chicago, and Wisconsin in August. And davidrovics.com/tour, you'll find all the info about that tour. And the album, I Heard a Rumor, drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st, including Spotify and all the others. And the next section of this 3-section album is the section that is basically related to the title track, which is basically songs related to what this wonderful author, what's her name, Renee, we just read this book, audiobook, Kamala and I, while driving through Australia. We read a wonderful book called Invisible Rulers, which is you can find on audiobook as well as printed and ebook and all that. And it is a fascinating and detailed accounting of methods of divide and rule through algorithm and trolling, and talking about just how the mechanisms work, and that the author refers to as the collision of the rumor mill and the propaganda machine. And my songs relate to that phenomenon as well. And this one is one of them. I Heard a Rumor.
There's a gig in town next week. I was thinking I might go, but I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna let anybody know, 'cause sometime they saying something I haven't heard about yet. I could make an association that I might regret. I heard a rumor that this might be, though it might have happened in a previous century. It's just better to be safe, in case I might be painted as a friend of the wrong person, and thus forever tainted. I heard a rumor that once upon a session, that commentator there committed a transgression. I can't remember what it was, or if what I heard is so, but until I can be certain, till I absolutely know, I heard a rumor. She made a joke on stage, we can't turn the other cheek, and we can never turn the page. She goes to the wrong church, she said the wrong thing, gotta throw her records out, not listen to her sing. I heard a rumor. I heard a rumor, he spoke to the wrong guy, you know, the one with the show on Sky. Now they say he's right adjacent to take such interviews. Speak to the wrong channel, then that becomes the news. I heard a rumor, he had too much to drink, asked some nosy questions. Now what will people think? It's a field full of minds. Wherever you might walk, best stay sober and stay silent before you become the talk. I heard a rumor, but now and then I reminisce about the days that I remember when it wasn't like this. I think of times gone by, on occasion I repine, recall when I didn't worry about crossing the wrong line. I heard a rumor.
And that song is obviously as much about the mentality of cancellation campaigning as about anything else. And what the phenomenon is that we're talking about here when it comes to the algorithms and the trolling and various other aspects of the basic design of these social media so-called platforms is they are really designed to weaponize or to vastly enhance the impact of or amplify tremendously the impact of the tendency that people already had of doing this kind of cancellation campaigning. It's just this kind of like cancel culture or whatever you want to call it, this mentality of exclusion, of finding fault and excluding. Well, I'm back. And of course, we lost the vast majority of our live viewers due to whatever technical thing happened that made the internet stop working on my phone. And I restarted my phone, and now everything seems to be working again. But of course, people left because it was a blank screen. But for the podcast version, we'll just get rid of that blank space, that dead air, and we will continue with this broadcast. I was just introducing the next song when the screen went blank, and I think I'd pretty much gotten to where I needed to get to that introduction. I don't remember where I got cut off anyway, so this next song is called Techno-Fascist God.
Sitting at my screen, it occurred to me one day, it's been years since I heard what those people used to say when the algorithms favored them and their form of opposition to the system. Now it's those that occupy my feed, and so they are what I write about, and this is what I read. When was it that I handed the control over my brain to billionaires with everything to gain? With a phone in my pocket, sheared and shot, all from inside my pod. I learned who should get the Rhapsody and who should get the rod from my techno-fascist god. I remember on the show when the internet was as decentralized as anything could get before the billionaires hijacked, sealed off the leak that had briefly cracked. The network of control now multiplied. Each device with your own dictator inside to personalize your program to train you to respond the way you should when they wave their wands. With a phone in my pocket, sheared and shot off from inside my pod, I learned who should get the rhapsody and who should get the rod from my techno-fascist god. Who should I do this one? I turn on the app, scroll a couple hours, keep my brainwashing on tap. What matters, what doesn't, who's telling us the truth? Should we blame the boomers, should we blame the youth? Should we blame the Proud Boys or the liberal elite? And how should we behave when we see one on the street? How much time did I just spend arguing with trolls and racing down another rabbit hole? With a phone in my pocket, sheared and shot all from inside my pod, I learned who should get the rhapsody and who should get the rod from my techno-fascist god.
Wow, everybody came back. That's remarkable. Good to see all up back, even though it's just a number on my screen. It's still very therapeutic somehow. That was Techno-Fascist God, and the next one is completely staying on the same subject of divide and rule and algorithms and techno-fascism and the rumor mill and the collision of the rumor mill and the propaganda machine, as that author of Invisible Rulers so brilliantly sums up. This is divide and rule. And I'll just say before playing the song that occasionally people misunderstand my intentions here in this song, and I don't know how often really, but the point is not to diminish in any way the importance of any of the issues in the song that I'm singing about. And for that matter, that same thing applies to other songs like I'm a Better Anarchist Than You. This, this is not to imply or suggest that any of these issues are not important. It's to suggest that even important issues can be very easily, often weaponized, used as a tool of divide and rule by the ruling class, so that they can use our words and our marches and our protests and everything to their advantage. Which is not to say we should stop protesting, but we should be aware of how we're being used, and there are actually all kinds of ways to avoid being used like that. I would suggest communicating almost entirely in song would be one way to do that, because people standing around chanting look really stupid.
What's more important, gender, race, or class? Give me the wrong answer and I'll have to kick your ass. Do Black Lives matter a little, or do they matter a lot? What were you doing on the night that Betty Jones was shot? Do you really care? If so, then how much? Or are you some kind of privileged person completely out of touch? Let's argue about it. Let's be perfect little tools. Let's play the game of the billionaires, the old divide and rule. What is your position on Vladimir Putin? Is he God or the devil? For which side are you rooting? Do you support negotiations or do you support the war? There's no room for nuance here. Which side are you for? Let's shout at one another until we get tired of shouting, and then entrench our positions and make sure to never talk again. Let's argue about it. Let's be perfect little tools. Let's play the game of the billionaires, the old divide and rule. Is it a genocide in Gaza, or is it just a slaughter? What do you call a country that won't let people have water? Is anti-Semitism on the rise? Is it true you can't call someone a Nazi if they are a Jew? How do we even start to have such a debate? What's your position on the existence of the Jewish state? Let's argue about it. Let's be perfect little tools. Let's play the game of the billionaires, the old divide and rule. What's your pronoun? How do you define your gender, sexuality? Where do you draw the line? What's the difference between X and Y? Who gets to be a girl? Who gets to be a guy? Who do you exclude and who do you embrace? What's your definition of safer space? Let's argue about it. Let's be perfect little tools. Let's play the game of the billionaires, the old divide and rule. Have you been doing the work? And if so, are you sure? Are you progressing towards the genuinely pure? Have you got the right perspectives? Your ducks all in a row? Is that Facebook banner just the one you really want to show? Do you look good in the camera? Sound earnest in the mic? Was there a post for which you regret clicking like? Let's argue about it. Let's be perfect little tools. Let's play the game of the billionaires, the old divide and rule. Let's argue about it. Let's be perfect little tools. Let's play the game of the billionaires, the old divide and rule.
And me wearing that Fifth Estate t-shirt in the video reminds me that the Fifth Estate Summer Edition is out now in print, and you can get yours at fifthestate.org if you like. And the end of the magazine features a review of my latest album before this one coming up on August 1st, Bearing Witness. And it also reviews a book that my collaborator, criminal co-conspirator Mike Crenshaw also contributed to on the next page of the Fifth Estate. And there's lots of other great stuff in there as well, which I haven't read yet. I just got home from Australia a few days ago, still recovering from jet lag. The children have been sleeping all day and staying up all night. And actually, Utah, my 8-year-old, was asked when he said he had jet lag, and he was asked, "What's jet lag?" He said, "That's when you stay up all night and sleep all day," which is pretty well, that's an accurate description, at least for his case. And the next couple of songs on the album, which drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st, the next two songs on the album are about my own particular experiences getting targeted by the collision of the rumor mill and the propaganda machine, or by the troll farms, by the algorithmically enhanced idiocy that is Twitter/X and other platforms. I've been targeted by the Hasbara trolls on a much more widespread basis, so much so that it's really kind of comical. But the trolling that has probably had more of an impact in terms of the people out there, particularly among certain crowds of young folks in the United States specifically, who are prone to believe anything they read on social media, or prone to fear the possibility of associating with the wrong people that they hear about on social media, because we've all been raised to be living in fear of cancellation campaigning, whether we even are, even though many of us are too afraid of it to even talk about it as existing, which is quite something. The people that say cancel culture don't exist, they're the ones who are either participating in the cancellation campaigning, or they're so afraid of getting targeted that they can't even admit that this phenomenon, which is so dominating their lives in so many ways, even exists. But this song I wrote actually long before Elon Musk bought Twitter, and so therefore it is called the Twitter troll jig, not the X troll jig or whatever I would have called it later. But I wrote the song and recorded it, I guess, maybe 3 years ago now, and it was one of the older songs. So one of the few older songs that were selected to appear on this album, and reinvigorated by Chet Gardner's brilliant work in the studio in Hawaii. Here's Twitter Troll Jig.
If you like my music, that's very nice. But if you want to book a gig, you better think twice. Post a tweet about it. God save your soul. Now you'll be hounded by the Twitter trolls. If that's how you like to begin your day, then by all means go tweet away. But if you value your sanity, think again before you leap into the lion's den. They'll tell you that I'm an anti-Semite who has sympathies with the far right. They'll tell you I'm a Holocaust denier. They'll set your Twitter feed on fire. They'll hack your accounts and call you names. They'll gaslight you with mind games. They will misquote things I said, and then they'll call for your head. If you run a festival or an open mic and you heard on Spotify a song you like, do your research before you say a thing. Anywhere, the trolls are king. What, you hired him? That old white fart? You some kind of racist? You call that art? Welcome to the internet, the modern age where rage is all the rage. They'll tell you that I'm an anti-Semite who has sympathies with the far right. They'll tell you I'm a Holocaust denier. They will set your Twitter feed on fire. They'll hack your accounts and call you names. They'll gaslight you with mind games. They will misquote things I said, and then they'll call for your head. Accountability, you'll find none. That's just how they have their fun. Cast allegations, see which ones float. Read every word that I ever wrote. Find the transgressions, he said that. Call him out, beat him with a bat. Cancel and shut him, make sure he knows he's on the blacklist wherever he goes. They'll tell you that I'm an anti-Semite who has sympathies with the far right. They'll tell you I'm a Holocaust denier. They will set your Twitter feed on fire. They'll hack your accounts and call you names. They'll gaslight you with mind games. They will misquote things I said, and then they'll call for your head. If you like my music, that's very nice.
It's all true. And one of the particular gurus of the Twitter trolls, who is one of the ones the trolls look to for who they should be targeting, is Rose City Antifa founder Shane Burley.
He writes books about fascists, sees fascists beneath every rock. If you have a different perspective than his, he'll announce you're full of schlock. He thinks left anti-Semites are everywhere. He doesn't care if you're a Jew. If you don't see things his way, then he'll try to cancel you. He's the cancel culture commander. To be a guru is his aim. The lying leader of the Twitter trolls, Shane Burley is his name. He is a proud anti-fascist, at least that's what he likes to say. So he attacks anti-fascists on Twitter, that's his anti-fascist way. His favorite targets, other leftists who don't see everything like him. He's the proud progenitor of modern Puritanism. He's the cancel culture commander. To be a guru is his aim. The lying leader of the Twitter trolls. Shane Burley is his name. He does not like Norman Finkelstein, and he does not like me. For him there is no option to agree to disagree. It's his way or the highway. It's that way all the time. And through lies and innuendo, he'll punish your thought crimes. He's the cancel culture commander. To be a guru is his aim. The lying leader of the Twitter trolls. Shane Burley is his name. He's the cancel culture commander. To be a guru is his aim. The lying leader of the Twitter trolls. Shane Burley is his name.
And that is once again me and Kamala Emanuel from Brisbane, Australia, singing there in that video. And we will be touring together in Oregon, California, Illinois, and Wisconsin throughout the month of August. And if anybody might be in those places or know anybody in those places, it would be wonderful if you'd tell them about any of the shows we'll be doing. That will generate an audience for us in a way that nothing else will. And it would be immensely appreciated if people might take a moment or two to tell people they know about the shows we're doing. It's all up at davidrovics.com/tour. Most of the shows we're doing have graphics associated with them for ease of sharing on various platforms. We'll be playing in Eugene and Ashland in Oregon, and in California, and an outdoor free show in a park in Mendocino, in the beautiful town of Mendocino. Also, the show in the park in Ashland is a free show in a park with bands and stuff. Then we're playing a wonderful backyard concert in the beautiful backyard in Santa Rosa, and we'll be playing it at Food Not Bombs founder Keith McHenry's local pub in Santa Cruz, and across from the Redstone building in San Francisco at the new location of the Living Wage campaign. We'll be playing there at Berkeley at the Art House Gallery and Cultural Center, wonderful place on Shattuck Avenue, and then at a new pub called Maddie's in Sacramento, a rare gig in Sacramento. And then we'll be soon thereafter, after playing at the Green Party National Convention online and the Veterans for Peace National Convention online, we'll be flying to Chicago, where we'll be playing the People's Fest on the 18th of August in Chicago at the DNC protests. And then there are the DNC protests just after that, which I don't know if anybody's playing music at them. I don't know who's organizing them. I don't know who to talk to, but if anybody out there does, apparently the theme is Palestine. We've got a hell of a lot of material on that particular theme, and we'd love to sing at those protests if anybody happens to know anybody who's involved with organizing any of that. But as it is, we're playing at the Poor People's Army's People's Fest on the 18th, which I'm very much looking forward to, and we'll be also doing a house concert on the 20th in Chicago. Info at davidrovics.com/tour if anybody wants to get a ticket to that. Most of the events are just come and donate at the door or whatever, but some of them you can buy tickets in advance, such as the house concert in Chicago. And then last gig we're doing before Kamala flies back home to Australia and I fly back home to Portland is Viroqua, Wisconsin, which might be one of the best gigs for sure because it's in Driftless Books in a beautiful, wonderful, tight-knit community, Viroqua. And Driftless Books is an amazing place full of 500,000 books run by a great guy named Eddie, who I've known for quite a while now at this point. Mutual friend of Brad Wills. Eddie. Brad grew up in Wisconsin as well. And so I all these concluding remarks because they're concluding remarks in case you haven't noticed. And this is I'm going to now play the last song on the album, which is about a country I got banned from 11 years ago. I think they have never told me why, but I think the actual reason might be because I did a benefit for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine to buy a printing press back in 2012. And that group, the PFLP, is not a terrorist group under New Zealand law. It is here in the United States. And apparently I might have stepped over the line there with that one. I don't know. Maybe they let me in now again. I don't know. It's, expensive to try to find out. But I miss Aotearoa very much for a lot of different reasons. It's a beautiful place. I have a wonderful bunch of friends and fans there, and I have enjoyed very much the times I've spent there, and it really sucks not to be able to go back, but I haven't been there since 2013. And during the pandemic, I was especially missing Aotearoa because they didn't get the pandemic. And that seemed like a very nice place to have maybe accidentally got stuck or something, which I, didn't. But I was fantasizing about the place, and I wrote this song, which I wrote several years ago, but it's one of the others, along with the last two, that are somewhat older songs that are on this album. And this is the one song that also doesn't fall into any of the three categories that the album is otherwise about. But I tacked it on at the end because I like the song. And Chet did a beautiful thing with it in the studio there in Hawaii. And once again, these have been tracks from my new album, I Heard a Rumor, which drops on all the streaming platforms on August 1st and is already on Bandcamp for anybody wanting to stream or download or, check out the bonus items or any of that. There's also 2 new live albums out on Bandcamp, one with Kamala in Australia, recently recorded, called Live at Eco-Socialism 2024, and another live album that involves me and Kamala and Chet and Lorna McKinnon from Glasgow and a wonderful drummer named Steve, which is called Live on the Big Island. And that'll also drop on the streaming platforms in mid-September. But I Heard a Rumor drops on August 1st, and any help getting the word out is much appreciated. And here is the last track on the album. And thanks for listening, everybody. It has been a pleasure, and hope to see you on the road and in the streets.
It's so strange to be so bored, so angry, and so anxious, all at the same time. Situation untenable. Whether you want to call it tragedy or crime, the past seems so distant, so foreign, and so very long ago. Just as distant as the future, which seems so impossible to know. It's so strange how fast the days go by, each one harder than the last. So bizarre to look around and see nothing that remotely resembles the past. Then I glance at the TV, see the places where the virus met defeat. People all breathing out in the open, together in the street. And I wish I were in Aotearoa, in Wellington, walking in the rain, or on the shores of Motueka, or somewhere this contagion was contained. It's so strange to try to make sense of all the different lives that people lead. So many children who go to bed hungry, in such desperate need. So many others just wishing they could open the door and crawl out from their hole. Get back to the lives they once had that the lockdown stole. And I wish I were in Aotearoa, in Wellington, walking in the rain, or on the shores of Motueka, or somewhere this contagion was contained. It's so strange to be looking at the flames as they're moving ever closer to the city, to see the roadways clogged with cars full of escaping refugees. So many people just trying to pass the time as they're waiting for their cue to be burned or flooded or evicted or intubated, wondering what to do. And I wish I were in Aotearoa, in Wellington, walking in the rain, or on the shores of Motueka, or somewhere this contagion was contained. It's so strange to be so bored, so angry, and so anxious all at the same time.